Hey Silkies, it's Black Silk, and today I'm going to be doing a blind react to a couple of videos that are goth themed. I've never seen the videos before. I've had them saved to my playlist, but I haven't watched them yet. So most of you, if you follow like goth videos on YouTube, probably have seen both of these videos, but I haven't seen either one of these videos yet. So we're going to check them out. I'm probably going to split this up into two videos, so you can pick and choose which one you want to watch and maybe watch both of them. So the first one I'm going to be doing is a brief history of goths, and this is from the TED Ed channel. So we're going to look at that, and really interesting. All right, let's get started.
All right, I have this brief history of goths video up on YouTube, and I'm going to react to it. I put the captions on so you all can listen to it, but I'm not going to have it turned up very loud because I do want to be able to talk and have you guys be able to hear me. So this one's about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's get started.
What do fans of atmospheric post-punk music have in common with ancient barbarians? Not much.
Nothing.
So why are both known as goths?
Okay, so I wanted to mention that there are so many jokes about this. Like, you're not really goth because these were the original goths. So we're going to continue.
Is it a weird coincidence or a deeper connection stretching across the centuries? The story begins in ancient Rome. As the Roman Empire expanded, it faced raids and invasions from the semi-nomadic populations along its borders. Among the most powerful were a Germanic people known as Goths.
Interesting. So this one is going to be about the actual history of Goths, like the original term Goths started back in this time. We're not talking about like goth like how I am right now, but we're gonna talk like maybe they'll talk about the connection between the two. So,
who were composed of two tribal groups, the Visigoths and Ostrogoths. While some of the Germanic tribes remained, the empire incorporated others into the imperial army. As the Roman Empire split in two, these tribal armies played larger roles in its defense and internal power struggles.
So the Goths were really powerful.
A mercenary revolt led by a soldier named Odoacer captured Rome and deposed the Western emperor. Odoacer and his Ostrogoth successor Theodoric
Ostrogoth sounds like a different subculture
and maintained
a different part of the subculture.
But the Western Empire would never be united again. Its dominions fragmented into kingdoms ruled by Goths and other Germanic tribes who assimilated into local cultures, though many of their names still mark the map.
I'm familiar with Anglo-Saxon.
Dark Ages. Although
of course,
Roman culture was never
Goths
fully lost,
were part of the Dark Ages.
Declined,
it just fits.
New art styles arose, focused on religious symbolism and allegory.
Oh yeah, that's very goth.
Proportion and realism.
That is very goth.
This shift extended to architecture with the construction of the Abbey of Saint-Denis in France in 1137. Pointed arches.
Now, I'm not really trying to talk over this, but yeah, if you want to watch this video without my commentary, I'll leave the link down below. But the architecture is something I'm most familiar with, the Gothic architecture, because I absolutely love it. I'm all about architecture. If you see in my photography page, I do capture a lot of stuff like that. So yeah, this is something that I admire. You don't see much of this where I live, obviously, but I mean, maybe like imitations or art that show this kind of architecture, but nothing like this is here. But I'm going to go ahead and continue.
Flying buttresses and large windows made the structure more skeletal and ornate. That emphasized its open, luminous interior rather than the sturdy walls and columns of classical buildings.
Which is absolutely beautiful, honestly, if you see pictures.
Over the next few centuries, this became a model for cathedrals throughout Europe. But fashions change. With the Italian Renaissance's renewed admiration.
I am not religious, but I do admire the cathedral architecture, so that's something I wanted to mention, but yeah.
Admiration for ancient Greece and Rome The more recent style began to seem crude and inferior in comparison. Writing in his 1550 book, Lives of the Artists, Giorgio Vasari was the first to describe it as Gothic, a derogatory reference to the barbarians thought to have destroyed classical civilization.
It was derogatory then?
And soon came to describe the medieval period overall.
Okay, so let me see something. I guess I'm making a connection with this. They haven't made a connection with the modern Goth and the historical Goth, but yeah, Goth was not always as accepted. Even when it was popular, it was kind of like, well, it still is this way, but it's not as bad as it used to be, where you would get like bullied for being Goth. So Goth was seen as derogatory, definitely the 90s, in the 80s, I think early 2000s. I think right now it's more acceptable. It's more like a fashion thing. So a lot more people were into that. But yeah, I also heard this. I don't know if they're going to mention this here, but I also heard that when more people start becoming Goth, that's a sign that there's a big economic crisis. But that was an article I read somewhere, so I don't quite think that's factual. But, you know, I could probably cover that in a different video. But yeah, let me go ahead and continue.
With its associations of darkness, superstition, and simplicity.
Which is something we're drawn to.
But time marched on, as did what was considered fashionable. In the 1700s, a period called the Enlightenment came about, which valued scientific reason above all else. Reacting against that, romantic authors like Goethe and Byron sought idealized visions of a past of natural landscapes and mysterious spiritual forces.
Very Goth-like.
Here, the word Gothic was repurposed again to describe a literary genre that emerged as a darker strain of Romanticism.
Well, most Goths, but we love dark poetry. A lot of us embrace this too, darker literature. It's something that is loved by us. There are many books out there now, but this is like, yeah, they're talking about this Enlightenment period. There's a darker strain of Romanticism, which, yeah, I think Goth fits very well into this period.
The term was first applied by Horace Walpole to his own 1764 novel, The Castle of Otranto.
That's something I need to read for sure.
And general atmosphere. Many of the novel's elements became genre staples, inspiring classics and the countless movies they spawned.
Oh, yeah, see? Classic movies.
The Gothic label belonged to literature and film until the 1970s, when a new musical scene emerged. Taking cues from artists like The Doors and the Velvet Underground, British post-punk groups like Joy Division, Bauhaus, and The Cure
familiar with them.
Gloomy lyrics and punk dissonance with imagery inspired by the Victorian era, classic horror, and androgynous glam fashion.
There we go. We're starting to get to the modern Goth.
Similar bands were consistently described as Gothic rock by the music press, and the style's popularity
I listened
brought
to
it out
all
of
of them.
lit clubs.
Not really
major
Alien
labels
Sex Fiend.
And MTV. And today, despite occasional negative media attention and stereotypes, Gothic music and fashion continue as a strong underground phenomenon.
But can we really call it underground now? Like, it's so popular now. Like, so many people, like, I think a lot of people just go for the Gothic aesthetic now, and it's just like edgy and cool or whatever. But it was more underground back in the 80s and the 90s, and arguably the 70s. I think there was still definitely some goth aesthetic in the 70s too. Actually, even before that, you gotta think like Vampira. I mean, that was before the 80s, her era. You know, she still had that aesthetic. Think like the Monsters, or think like the Addams Family even. That has been around before the 80s. So I'm actually surprised they didn't mention that part. They mentioned the music, which is good. But, like, I think it's existed before the 80s, like the fashion. So, but yeah. I'm not going to go too much into that.
They've also branched into subgenres such as cybergoth, gothabilly, gothic metal, and even steampunk.
Oh boy. Okay. So this has been a big debate with the goth scene. They like to say cybergoth isn't goth, it's more like dark raver, but that's still considered goth. Gothabilly, I haven't really heard anybody like say anything negative about that one. Steampunk, there's a thin line there. Some people say steampunk is under goth, but just like brown goth. I'm thin line there. Me personally, I don't think it's a goth. I think it's alternative, but some people think that steampunk is considered goth. And metal goth, people just call them metalheads. Or this looks like, well, based on the image, it's a cartoon, so this looks more like black metal or something, which isn't goth, by the way. So I don't know if they're confused by that, but I'm going to continue to watch.
The history of the word Gothic is embedded in thousands of years' worth of countercultural movements. From invading
I mean, there's
outsiders
Gothic
becoming
rock,
kings,
but
to towering spires
I'm not
replacing
going to like
solid
really
columns,
debate that right
to
now.
artists finding beauty in
Because a lot of
darkness.
goths like
Each step has
metal.
seen a revolution
So
of sorts and a tendency for civilization to reach into its past to reshape its present.
we always dig into the past. Always. The past is always repeating. So that was interesting. So I would love to know what you all thought about that video. It's an interesting brief history for those who don't know about that, because some people entering the subculture don't realize that goth has been around for a long time, just different definitions, different time periods of what goth was. I thought that was really interesting. I feel like I made the connection a little bit better than the video did, but definitely interesting point. So let me know what you think about this video, and if you would like to see the whole video, you could check the link down below, as I mentioned earlier. And thank you for watching, Silkies. Like and subscribe for more videos.